detective. Thrill me.
All right, Halloween's over. We had our double Rank the Halloween series. And we're back to listener requests. Kevin, one of our listeners, requested the Stephen King adaptation 1408. Jared, how are we, mate?
Yeah, not too bad.
How was the Halloween period?
Yeah, pretty good. Pretty good.
Anything on... Did we get any trick-or-treaters? Did we...
No. Well, I was the only one home, so I took the kids trick-or-treating, so anyone that knocked on my door was
got nothing.
I bought 6 bags of lollies, but just ate them myself.
They got none later. We had a very much an influx out in our area.
Yeah.
Obviously, being Australians, it's not a big thing, but it's kind of become a lot bigger over the last few years. I know, the last 3 or 4 years we've done the trick-or-treating and we kind of dressed the house up a little bit so people are aware, you can come and knock on the door.
Yeah.
And
scaring children.
Fucking scaring children fucking pretty well at times this year, but I reckon we would have had probably 10 or so groups knock on the door, so that's quite a few. All right, before we get into this, because no Gibbo this week.
No,
he's come down with chicken pox. Has he
got
it?
His kids have got chicken pox. I thought it might have been shark pox myself. But
yeah, I reckon he just had a look at the resume and just thought, fuck this. What haven't I had yet? Chicken pox. So Gibbo is out for the next couple of episodes. He's quarantined. But before we get to the actual film, let's do a run through of what we've been watching. Mm-hmm. Obviously, with our Halloween episode, the way it was, probably been about 4 weeks since we talked about what we'd watched.
Yes.
So, what do you got, mate?
Well, too much Halloween. Even though I do love the Halloween movies, but shit, even trying to take it all 10 of them in one dose was difficult at times.
Look, I'm not going to lie to you. I took the Ace Ventura approach and fucking took a plunge to my own face after watching the entire series because, there's a few real turkeys in there, I got to admit.
Yeah, so obviously that was in there. I watched a bit more of Bates Motel.
Yeah.
2 seasons in, really good. I'm really enjoying it. I think the second season was better.
Yeah.
And from what I'm led to believe, the rest of it is pretty much that quality. So I'm really looking forward to finishing that. Yeah. I watched The Founder.
Oh, yeah.
One about
McDonald's.
Yeah. It was all right. Michael Keaton was excellent. But, yeah, not a gem. No. It was interesting to see how it all happened. It's varying levels of bullshit, as these true stories have. But, it was interesting how it all went down. I watched Cult of Chucky.
Cult of Chucky?
I actually purchased Cult of Chucky. Yeah, I quite liked it.
Is it kind of a reboot, the whole series?
Curse of Chucky was the last one, was like a reboot, sort of. So this is the sequel, and it has Brad Dourif's daughter again. And she looks distractingly like him.
That's not good. Was she the hero? Yeah, Jesus. She's got a career in villains.
Yeah, but this one was. It took it in an interesting direction, and I was happy enough with it.
Have they dropped all the Tiffany stuff?
No, she's still there.
She's still there.
Still there. It's funny because it's taken it. The last one was kind of a reboot, but then brought back things that
from
were canon from the first ones.
Yeah,
and so it's kind of. I think it was just rebooting it into the public fucking consciousness because they've taken stuff from the original movies. So they're both worthwhile. I quite liked both of them. I watched Batman: Return of the Caped Crusaders and Batman vs Two-Face. So if you don't know what that is, that was they redid Batman 66 as one of the DC animated films.
Right, okay.
Worked really well. It was really enjoyable. Obviously got Adam West and Burt Ward back to do it. Got a few of the other voices, but they took it, like, for example, they get in fucking bat spaceships and all sorts of shit. So it takes what was going on in the 66 show into the animated realm where you don't really have those limits. So it was really well done. And Batman vs Two-Face, which has only just come out, was actually Adam West's last film.
Okay.
And William Shatner was Two-Face. Oh. So it's pretty cool hearing those two go back and forth. Yeah, I enjoyed both of them as well. I think I probably liked the second one better, actually. Slasher, Season 2.
I also saw Slasher.
Yeah, I haven't finished it yet. I haven't finished it yet. I'm 4 episodes in. Look, I'm not loving it. But yeah, I obviously have to reserve judgment until everything comes out in the wash and we figure out who's who and who's doing the deed.
Look, from my perspective, it's classic 80s slasher film. Like, I will give them credit for staying in that pocket, like knowing that this stuff can be quite silly and kind of plundering, pushing that as for everything it's worth.
Yep.
It's extremely violent.
Yes.
Extremely violent. Like,
although it does also go long stretches early with
with not a lot of violence, but when they do it comes hard. Like,
yeah.
I haven't seen this much violence in a slasher film in a long time.
Yep.
But I'm telling you now, it's pretty generic.
It meanders.
And you're about to hit the period where even the biggest person like myself who doesn't pick up on who does these things in these whodunits, I picked it like it was... Like, me and my wife were just talking and she's like, she pointed the finger and I kind of went, yeah, it must be. Like, there's no other explanation.
Yeah.
And, of course, it's exactly what you expect. Look, it's well made and it's, it's diverting and I'd probably watch a third season. But I'm not. I mean, I didn't even like the first season that much. So, it's kind of... It's like Scream. Like, the Scream TV show is the same. It's just... It doesn't... They don't quite know how to get the right elements together.
Yeah. I think we discussed it, and I still think, even though I think it had some missteps and messed up in some areas, Harper's Island's still the one that's done the slasher TV show the best, because they ran with this, one person's going to die each week, and it was fun.
And the idea of Harper's Island trapping them on the one place, going back to
and
it.
Everyone had a secret, kind of like...
I dug that. And this goes the same way.
Yeah.
And I do like the idea of the camp in winter time. I thought that was kind of cool. It's a nice look. But it's just... There's some very untidy shit.
Yep.
About midway through that I just thought, we're getting too heavy here. This is too far for me. And I'm not a prude. Shit. I watch all sorts of shit.
I caught up on some of the new seasons of the DC shows. Yeah, going along nicely. I haven't actually watched much Arrow yet. I don't even think I finished the first episode. Supergirl mainly, I've seen. I'm still enjoying that one. But still working my way through them. The funny thing is, the most enjoyable one at the moment might actually be Legends of Tomorrow, because they got rid of a couple of the dud actors, and it's got a Quantum Leap vibe where they go through time and just sort of prop up in different time periods and things like that.
Well, that's cool.
So it's as I said, it might be the one that's the most fun at the moment. I watched that doco, An Open Secret, which was fairly untidy. It's to do with the
Hollywood
assault allegations going on in Hollywood. In the wake of Harvey Weinstein, it went online for free for about 10 days. But it's mainly based at child actors. So it's got some of the people that fucking Corey Feldman's been talking about recently and stuff like that. It's really untidy and it doesn't paint a good picture for someone like Bryan Singer, although it doesn't really go too deep into his allegations. It does sort of paint the picture of what he's supposed to be involved in. It's pretty untidy. It was pretty difficult to watch, but it's the sort of thing that probably needs to be out there. So I watched the Blade Runner sequel.
Any good?
Yeah, it was really good. I'm not going to lie, I was...
Nodding off.
I did nod off at one point for probably only about a minute.
Is that why it was so good? I slept through an hour?
I haven't had that much trouble at the cinemas in a while, but I went with a mate and just the first hour I was just locked in. The middle hour, I just started to drift a little, but then after that, I kind of had my little 60-second power nap, and then I was back in the game. I know, it was really good, like visually spectacular, really sort of takes its time. Harrison Ford, look, I can't help it. In this and Star Wars and that, I can't help but feel like he just doesn't want to be there anymore. He's just cashing checks at this point.
Yeah.
But Gosling was fantastic, and I quite enjoyed it.
Ford's just dusting off his old properties one last go round before he retires, basically.
And the other thing was Stranger Things.
You watched Stranger Things?
I believe I got 3 episodes to go.
Right. How is it?
Oh, fuck, I just love that show. Yeah. It's got some things that I didn't quite like. Obviously, I haven't seen how 11's going to play out. But
is it on the same par as the first season or slightly below?
It's probably slightly below because, again, you can't sort of recreate the sort of surprise
Yeah, the
factor.
lightning in a bottle.
Yeah. But I just love the show. The kids just have such a good chemistry together and really entertaining. But yeah, 11's kept apart from them from where I'm at. She still hasn't come into contact with the other kids yet. And part of that works really well, but some of it's kind of like, I sort of wish it would work its way back there, but she's got her own thing going on, so yeah, I really like it. I just love that show. It might actually be my favourite thing on at the moment. So yeah, if they renew it for season 3, I think they might have picked up season 3 and 4.
Yeah.
So I'm all in.
No doubt, it's probably locked in for a little bit longer.
Yep.
And is that it?
That's it.
Okay. I of course watched Slasher. I'm 7 episodes into Mindhunter.
Oh yeah.
Fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Real slow burn.
It's on my list
slow burn.
after Stranger
Don't
Things.
expect Criminal Minds, you know.
Yep.
Well, this is how I explain it to people. Criminal Minds is the wham bam, everything gets solved in an hour.
Yeah.
This is the exact opposite. Everything's slow, methodical. We're building to things. Each episode starts with like a 2-minute vignette that's got nothing to do with it. But it's going to converge somewhere.
Yeah.
And it may not be this season. It may even be next season. But it's going to converge. And if you know your serial killers, you'll probably guess where they're going with it. But it's really, really impressive. The acting's fantastic. The visuals, it looks great. Like, it's 77 or 79 a set. The production design's fantastic. The acting from the 2 leads is excellent. You can see the fingerprints of David Fincher, who's the producer on it, all over it, But it's really, really strong, and it's definitely worth a look. I watched a 2-part doco series on ABC called Horror Movie, A Low Budget Nightmare. They had a bloke trying to make a movie in Australia called Red Christmas.
Yep.
Awesome. Really, really good. It just shows what it takes to make a low-budget flick.
Yep.
And it just shows him putting basically everything on the line financially.
Probably not a great idea.
Not a great idea, no. The film looks all right.
Yeah.
And I think it's on iTunes.
Yeah.
I might have to actually have a look. He ended up getting Dee Wallace to come over. And I think he was a bit worried about how she was going to react because it was really low budget. But she turned out to love it. Like, she loved it. Her experience there was great. But it's just really interesting to see how that sort of stuff gets made. And the way he kind of changes his thinking at the end, because he just thought you just turned up to film festivals and then someone bought it.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't work like that.
No, it doesn't.
And the last thing I saw was actually a fan film on YouTube called Never Hike Alone. It's the Friday the 13th one.
Yep. Was that the one where the dude did a lot of it on GoPro and stuff like that? Or?
Yeah, there's a bit of that in there. Yeah. It's kind of it's half sort of found footage type of look and half normal footage. I liked it.
Yep.
It's really professionally made. There looks like there's a little bit of money. There's some pretty good effort involved.
Yep.
Gets a little bit off track near the end, and we get a surprise sort of cameo from a actor from the original Friday series. But it's good. It's a calling card. Yeah, you could put your hand up and say, well, put me in. I might be able to do something with something like this.
Well,
especially on the budget they would have had, which would have been fairly limited.
I mean, I've gone down rabbit holes of like Batman fan films and things like that, and sometimes it's just these people are just having a bit of fun on the weekend. But other times it's like, fuck, somebody who's involved should call these people because it's really, really
there's
good.
Money, there's effort, there's
makeup on
knowledge
of
how this works.
Yeah, exactly. There's some really fantastic stuff out there. So,
and I think this would be in that sort of echelon to me. It's the kind of thing where there's some good effort gone into it. There's some pretty decent cinematography and all that. The acting by there's sort of one guy and Jason for the most part, and the guy playing the hiker is quite good. So look, it's worth a look. It's on there for free. It's it's definitely worth a look.
I mean, I remember there's a kind of almost legendary one called Batman Dead End. That's it's freaking incredible what they did with it. They actually got the guy that did it actually had access to some of the suits from 20th Century Fox, so he brought a few other characters in and actually ended up getting things like surprise action figures that popped up in lines 10 years down the track based on something he'd done. Like it was pretty incredible where it can get to. So.
Exactly. But that's about it for me.
Great.
All right. On to Kevin's pick, 1408. Here's the trailer.
You're not going anywhere. You're staying right here with us.
Daddy, everyone dies.
When Mike Enslin lost his daughter, the afterlife became his obsession.
You probably want to hear all about our haunted history.
But after years of searching, he no longer believes.
So you're saying there's no such thing as ghosts?
I'm saying I've never seen one. Nothing would make me happier than to experience a paranormal event.
Gerald Olin, manager of the Dolphin.
If I can just get the key to 1408.
In the 95 years of the hotel's existence, there have been 56 deaths in 1408.
56.
No one's ever lasted more than an hour. The first victims to Kevin O'Malley.
Cut his own throat.
Do not stay in that room.
Hotel rooms are a naturally creepy place. It does have the vague air of menace. Nobody lasts more than an hour. You're gonna have to try harder, Olin! It's not what I'm seeing. It's not real. It just ain't as real as it seems. Holy.
Get a hold of yourself.
O'Malley.
Based on a story by Stephen King.
Did you call the cops?
They're in 1408. The room's empty.
I'm gonna die.
I warned you about 1408.
Daddy, don't you love me anymore?
1408. Directed by Michael Hofstrom.
1408 from 2007. It's directed by Michael Hofstrom, who did Escape Plan.
Congratulations. I thought you were going to mangle that one.
Oh, shit.
You've got a history of doing
Well, yeah, I mean... I was pre-warming it before. Produced by Lorenzo Di Bonaventure, who does the Transformers films. There you go. Butchered immediately. Written by Matt Greenberg, who did Halloween H2O, and Scott Alexander and Larry Krasowski. There you fuck, look what you've done. They wrote Man on the Moon.
Keep going.
And it's based on the short story by Stephen King. It stars John Cusack as Mike Enslin and Samuel L. Jackson as Jared Olin. The budget was $25 million, and it made about 131 worldwide. And in the standard edition DVD, the runtime is exactly 104 minutes and 8 seconds.
There you go.
Right, Jared, what was your take on 1408?
Right. Well, I kind of struggle with these films where it's just someone seemingly going out of their mind sometimes. But I really like this one. The acting is top notch. The acting that you get from Cusack basically is top notch. Even Sammy Jackson gives one of his better performances because he's not,
Yelling.
He's not yelling and carrying on. I've spent plenty of time around hotels through, employment of people in my life, and he fits the mold perfectly of one of those hotel managers. That sort of air of confidence, but almost like a salesman sort of vibe to them. But so even Sammy Jackson was fantastic. It's just a nifty little little piece. Basically, there's nothing that really I come out of thinking, oh, that's an absolute classic. That's a scene that I'll remember for the rest of my life, or that one chilled me to the bone. But all of them are pretty effective. There's nothing that's really poorly done. So I reckon I'll probably sit with a 3 out of 5. It's not a classic by any stretch, but it is a really well done film and really enjoyable. And I didn't have a lot to dislike about it.
Yeah, look, I'm a bit the same. What's interesting for me is thinking back to when Kevin actually brought it up. He stated that, you know, when we'd done an episode on The Shining, I think, and we talked about some of King's other work, we hadn't spoken about this. And I was kind of like, oh, shit.
Yeah, I forgot
all about it.
Completely. Which, it's, I think until this might have been his highest grossing film.
Yeah, or one of. Yeah, one of his, definitely
I think it was
highest. Yeah.
I read about it previously, I read some articles about it, and as of the time that it was released, it was the top one.
Yeah. So it's one that kind of slips the mind, and it's not because it's bad, because I don't think it's bad at all. I think that like you, I feel it's a nifty little scare film that works for the most part. I'm probably in the same boat, 3 out of 5. I like it. My problem with it actually stems to the latter half, where I think it gets a little threadbare, because all we're doing is throwing boo, 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 boo. And we're just setting up all this, staging all these boo moments. And then when we finally get to the actual meat of the story, I just kind of didn't really dig that as much.
Yeah.
I love all the early setup. I think some of that stuff is great. So for me, 3 out of 5.
Yep. Fair call. Yeah, we'll have to look into that, but because I was actually...
Well, I would have thought something like Green Mile.
Yeah.
Was the biggest one.
Yeah, well, perhaps what I was looking at may have mentioned just horror, but
yeah,
in terms of... I definitely read something that stated this was his highest grossing film.
Well,
so maybe
certainly it must be up there.
Just the horror ones, but...
it certainly must be one of the highest ones of recent times too, because he hadn't had a lot of success in terms of his adaptions, box office wise, in the 2000s until it.
And there was a very valid point that was brought up about how it sort of came at a really good time too, because people were sort of, or some people weren't really into the whole sort of Saw and Hostel sort of thing that came up in the early 2000s. So this was 2007 and was almost a departure, just going back to one of those little sort of ghost stories, you know, not overly violent, just chilling sort of moments. So,
and look, I really like the opening scenes to establish Mike Enslin, where he's flogging his books in, you know, little reading circles where no one really turns up, and he previously had written a really good book and no one read it, and now he's just a kind of a hack who just does this ghost story sort of crap and debunking ghost places and all this sort of stuff. I really, really like that, and I think it was it just sort of streamlined him into a really interesting sort of guy. You got a quick sense of him.
It was 10 minutes of absolute top-notch character development.
Yeah.
Like, we had minimal interactions with other people, but we got so much information about him. And as you said, you know, you get that first part where he checks into the hotel. You get what he does, you know, what he does for a living, the way he treats the owners, the dismissive way, sort of tells us this is just another one on the list. Basically, he does,
because they keep talking about how scary the place is.
Yeah, and he's just dismissive, and it's such a small thing, but you're like, okay, once you start to get the context of what he does, you're like, okay, well, this is fucking just tick a box,
part of the
course to the next one. And then, you know, the book signing again shows he's cynical and he's doing something that he doesn't really love. And then the woman comes up with the old book, and you get the sense that's what he wanted to fucking do. And
he kind of lights up a bit. He's like,
he does. He lights up, but then he kind of gets back to his kind of cynical sort of self. Playing basketball when he's taking the call to 1408, making the call to 1408, to the Dolphin Hotel. Sorry, it's again shows that he's just fucking. This is another one on the list. Doesn't think anything about it. Like, it's just really good character work.
But what I also like about when he calls the Dolphin Hotel is just the way they keep that mystery, where they just sort of go, it's unavailable. He hadn't even given him a date, and they just go, it's unavailable.
Unavailable. Next
and
month.
Then they just hang up on him.
Yep.
I like that. Just a little bit of air of mystery.
Yep.
Rather than kind of explaining why we don't hand the room out and all this sort of bullshit. So it's not one of his usual.
Yep.
Where juxtaposing it against him going into the hotel in the first minute, that they're explaining, someone died in the room in this period and all this sort of shit. Whereas when he rings the dolphin, they just tell him it's unavailable.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
it. You know?
Yep.
No spiel, just you don't get it.
Yeah.
I really like that sequence when him and Cusack and Jackson meet in the office.
Yeah, that's excellent.
It's the best scene in the movie. It's really well done. There's a real good back and forth. You get plenty of info, but it's not sort of generically passed out info. It's nicely put in there.
It's really good conversation, and then you get moments like, they're talking about the deaths, and then Cusack starts cutting him off and repeating the deaths, and then he's basically like, I do my research, blah blah blah, and then Jackson goes into what about the natural deaths, and Cusack's like, natural deaths? He's like, they're the ones that don't get reported. And then he starts, Cusack's going, this is all, your sales will go up 50% and whatever. And he's like, this is an old hotel, but we operate at 90% capacity. There's no sales pitch here. Like, it's sort of back and forth as to who's holding the power in the conversation. And it's
really like
good.
it.
Yeah, really good work. And then it actually finishes like, it almost seems like classic Sammy Jackson, but because he's very restrained, it works really well when he starts, the final line is, it's an evil fucking room. Isn't the key? Yeah, that stuff was great. And it's kind of, by the time he gets in the room, I think it's still only, we're half hour in.
Yeah.
And all that stuff has been excellent, really, up to that point. And we still don't know. We know that there's stuff for Enslin that's going to come out, but we don't know what that is. So there's mystery about him too, about what it's going to be.
You said before that Cusack's excellent. It's pretty much a one-man show.
Yeah,
essentially, because Jackson isn't really in it other than that sequence.
Well, he goes there, and then there's basically 2 more minutes of him for the rest of 2 or 3 more minutes,
and it's all at the end, I think. And we get a couple of other characters who aren't ghosts, you know. So his wife we see, I think. But other than that, everyone else is a ghost or someone
who's not really interacting with him other than to scare him briefly.
Yeah.
Piss off.
I really like the look and feel of the Dolphin Hotel. It gives off a Shining vibe.
Yeah, it does.
Me.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that it's actually set in the middle of the city.
Yeah.
Not in, a lot of these would be little rundown motels out in the sticks or high in the mountains or something, but it's right in the centre of the city. Yeah,
it actually ends up working to heighten the sense of isolation. As you said, the room's very creepy and things start to happen very slowly and they aren't really scary, like the song bursting in, but they start slowly build this atmosphere. But then you get to the point where he's sort of screaming out the window or, trying to get attention out the window and there's just nothing.
Yeah.
And you sort of like, from that point on, you sort of get locked in the room with him.
Yeah.
And it's really well done. Really well done. Even when the bloke comes up to fix the thermostat, he won't come in the room and they take, you get shots of him from across the room standing in the doorway and it all sets you up like you're just stuck in here with Cusack, basically.
And what I love about it too is taking that time to build the suspense with those little things helps in the long run because, you've got the whole thing, the heat, the radio, the painting moves, the blood smears when he runs the black light, they're all over the place. And those things slowly ramp up. And I think it's to the movies, it's a really good move for it. It's actually one of its more effective ways of doing it as opposed to just ladling on, suddenly the guy's trapped in the room and it's all happening,
Yeah.
They take their time, which is what I like.
Yep.
One of my favourite parts of the film is when he actually looks out the window and he sees somebody and he starts going, help, help, help. And it's mirrored. It's just him doing it back to himself. Yeah. I thought that was great.
And that's when it starts to bring in all this stuff about that you're being haunted by your own past, basically, and you're looking inside your own head, basically, and
and also I shit my pants when he comes back inside the room and that bloke suddenly comes out of nowhere with a fucking hammer.
Yeah.
I've gone, whoa, where'd that come from?
He looked like Clint Howard. Which is always very scary.
Exactly. He could have not had a hammer.
He did have a hammer. Oh, Clint Howard, fuck. Yeah, no, that stuff was excellent. And it's sort of, I really liked how they built his past very slowly. Like, you didn't know what was going on with his dad and all that sort of stuff just builds itself pretty well. Pretty well. Like, you don't just get it given to you in a hurry.
No, they hold back. And look, the film's pretty well directed. And
really
quite
well
atmospheric.
Yep.
They use a lot of close-ups and off-kilter angles and shit like that.
Yeah.
Which I think works really, really well.
Well,
the
combination of that and John Cusack is really what made the movie.
Yeah.
Without, with a lesser actor and a director that didn't handle it quite so well and didn't build the tension quite so well, it could have been a really boring movie.
Yes, because... Well, I'll get to it more, but it just kind of doesn't hold your attention for the whole 100-odd minutes.
Yeah, yep.
And that's not... Look, it would have been better at a 90-minute, a bit breezier, but there's probably a little bit more to it than that. Like, it's a really hard one to explain because it's just not quite strong enough with the deep stuff.
Yeah.
But it also doesn't go long enough with the scary stuff. Yeah. It's kind of sits really weirdly in the middle. I also love the fact that every time you see some of the ghosts, they look like kind of old movie characters. They're in black and white, and they're flashing really weirdly, and they're dressed old. And
it actually gives it like a Twilight Zone sort of feel, as does the old hotel.
Yeah.
It kind of fits into that. It's like an old Twilight Zone episode, basically. Like in some senses.
In some sense, it is. Yeah. I do like the scene where he actually crawls out the window.
Yep.
And then it just goes on and on and on and on, and all the other windows have disappeared.
Yeah.
He's trying to go from this window to the hallway window.
Yeah.
And then they just disappear, and he's basically on his own.
It all builds up. What did you get from it? What did you get that the film was kind of... Because what I got, I'll put it... This is what I felt was like Room 1408. Obviously, I said, he's going into his head and that sort of stuff, and it's kind of like the grief that he's feeling and all that. When they start talking about you can check out and all this sort of stuff, that's the vibe that I got is like 1408 is his grief and the scars from what happened with his family and his daughter, and the only way to really check out is you fucking die, because that shit's never going away, basically.
And look, I kind of got that vibe too, but going towards the negative, I don't know whether it was explained that well. And the problem, one of the bigger problems for me was, and there's multiple endings to this film.
Yeah.
If you look at the DVD, there's several.
Yeah. And
I don't know if any of them really make much sense to me. Like the one I got, I just remember watching it and just thinking, okay.
Well, which one did you get?
The one where he's in the back of the car with Jackson.
Yeah.
And he's all burnt up.
Yeah.
And they're at the funeral. They're at his funeral.
Yeah, that's what I got too.
And I looked at the other two.
Last time I watched it, I thought I might have seen a different one.
Yeah, and they're on the DVD, and I looked at them, and one of them's him in the room with the laptop or something, or talking to someone. I can't remember them. But I just remember watching them and thinking, none of them are satisfactory.
Yeah.
Like, none of them really explain what you're trying to say.
Yeah, well, that's right. I felt like the funeral one didn't really wrap it up.
And this is the thing. I think you're correct. I think it was all about the grief and the family situation that he'd had.
Yeah.
But it doesn't do a good enough job explaining that to me. So when I get to the end, I'm scratching my head. Now, I'm not the smartest man in the world.
No, and you're not exactly talking to Albert Einstein.
No, certainly not.
It's not Hawking and Einstein, Marley Gamer. What's Stephen King's adding to
No, it's not. But that's a major failing. Because if you can't actually explain, like, it's one thing to watch something like what's a movie that's really got no story? Something like a David Lynch picture, like Lost Highway or something, which they're off in the fucking clouds, mate. There's no real linear storytelling there, so you can't actually tell what's happening.
Rubber was one that I remember.
That stupid fucking tyre that kills people. But what I mean is,
didn't quite catch that one.
David Lynch films are for a certain, I guess, fan base.
Yeah.
They're not interested in linear storytelling. They're not interested in beginning, middle, end.
Yeah, hero's journey.
Yeah, they're into visual and take it wherever you want to take it.
Yeah.
Like, look at it, digest it, and decide where you think it went.
Existential?
Existential is a good word for it. But this is a kind of a popcorn, not a popcorn, but it's a classic scary movie.
Yep.
For the masses.
Yep.
That then doesn't explain itself.
Yeah, it's sort of.
So
as I said,
could you imagine being 15 years old and sitting there?
Yeah. As I said, these ones where they go sort of into your mind and your psyche and all that sort of stuff, they don't usually do it for me. Like, I had a mate that used to talk about In the Mouth of Madness as one of, John Carpenter's best and an absolute classic. And I watched it and I was just, what's going on, basically? Like, it's not my sort of thing. It's not what I watch movies for.
And but that's not to say that this didn't find it for some people.
This one's sort of more on my level because it's giving a little bit of that. Like when he's crawling through the air vents. Through the air vents, for example, and you get a little. He's looking at that woman, and it turns out it's his wife when his daughter was a baby and things like that. That sort of works a bit more for me. And there was an arc for him. There was a sort of a character development. But as you said, it's when you get one guy in a room for an hour, it's really hard to take it very far. And it's kind of not, as I said, it's not usually the thing I like to sort of watch. This was one of those movies that it's probably the best of those for me. It's probably the best of those ones where someone goes into the mind of that, but it doesn't allow for it's very slow. It's very slow storytelling. And as you said, it's sort of because he's so isolated, it doesn't really allow for much plot to develop.
Yeah. And look, I've got one more like before we get into the dislikes, because I think that we're going to cover some of that ground. We're going to really sort of dissect that ground there. But I actually kind of like the sort of bait and switch that he wakes up.
Yeah, that was cool.
I like that.
Yep.
He wakes up and back in his where he had the surf accident. And you think it's kind of come back around.
Yep.
And then it twists back on itself again.
Yeah.
And I did like that. I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, and it's kind of because the director's done such a good job, it kind of comes as a real kick in the balls, basically, when it happens. You really actually sit there and go, fuck.
Is it like a Roddy Piper?
It's like it's like Keith David and Roddy Piper. Rochambeau. It's real, and I think it's for mine Cusack's best moment in the movie, other than when he's shaking the mini fridge. Remember when he's when he opens the fridge and Sammy Jackson's in there talking to him, and then they go behind him and he's sitting there yelling at it, and it's back to just cans in the fridge. Yeah. That was cool, but I like the bit when his daughter comes back and he's hugging her and stuff. Like he's the cynicism breaks down, and he hugs his daughter and. Then she just goes limp in his arms. That was fucking heartbreaking. Yeah. The way the Cusack played it, it was heartbreaking to watch, really.
Yeah.
I actually think that might have been his best moment in the movie. So, yeah. But you're right, that they played it really well, and it was timed really well. I think, as you said, it's kind of it sort of broke up what could have become far too tedious if it had have kept going without a little break like that.
And in a way, though, it kind of splits the film for me. That's the section that splits it from the really good stuff that I liked to the less successful. And when I say less successful, I mean I don't hate it. I just don't feel it works.
Yeah. Yep.
And this, getting into the dislikes. Coming back to what I was saying, I mean, there's probably people who picked up on what they were trying to say with regards to his family and the grief and everything. But I just didn't find it was there because I think it was a little bit convoluted. Like, so much was going on for him. He turned into a crazy man. Yeah. And I think the limitations of a short story is evident here.
Yeah, exactly.
You have stretched this to absolute breaking point.
A short story, I mean, by its very nature, doesn't have like the sort of conflict in the middle and the twists that kind of take you from where you're going with the story to we've got another complication or something like that. You miss that, so that's when it translates to
and they do a reasonable job of trying to get there. They do it.
But when it translates to a 100-minute movie, it's tough because I agree with you in some points. Like the part where he's on the computer to his wife, that's really ramping up some of the scares and his sort of storyline and his arc with his family. Like the part where he's talking to his wife and then the computer or the room starts taking over the conversation and then cuts her off and then looks at him on the screen and smiles at him and stuff. That stuff's fucking great. Like, it's really good. And then you go into that, as you said, you go back to him thinking it's after the accident, wakes up in the hospital, goes back to normal life, but then he's back in the room. And I think I agree. Other than the part with his daughter, after that, it sort of doesn't really...
It kind of slips.
It's been, it's working with we've been working with the jab for a couple of rounds, and now it's time to really knock you out, and it just doesn't.
And the scares that they sort of slowly roll out to us for that first hour, once they get going, they actually go overboard. And they start ramming them onto you really fast. And they drop the slow burn aspect suddenly. The slow burn suddenly drops out, and suddenly we are at Jump Scare City, where everything's just loud. And they're trying to kind of, I guess, we've built this up, now we're just going to go into full-on mode.
Yeah.
And I think that was a mistake. Honestly.
Yeah.
I think the slow burn was working.
Yep.
And it would have kept working because they already had you.
From some of the, after watching it and putting together our thoughts, like I went and read some reviews on it, because it's definitely one of those movies where I want to see what other people think.
Yeah.
Because, it might enlighten me as to, the dullard that I am. Maybe Stephen Hawking did actually watch the film and give us some thoughts on it. But that was one of the biggest criticisms. Almost every review I read said that the scares went over the top and too far into like effects territory and things like that. That they'd worked really well, and then it just went too far.
It's like they couldn't help it.
Yeah.
They kind of thought, we're losing them, We're 45 to 50 minutes in. We've kept everyone on the edge of their seat, but we're going to lose them in a second. So if we don't ramp up.
I think it might have been a product of what you said about it's just the short story. When you pad it out to an hour-long movie, you got to fill something. You got to fill with something, and maybe that's what it was.
King's a mixed bag when it comes to this sort of shit, because what they do is some of them take one of his short stories and they turn it into gold.
Yeah.
Right? I can't think of any off my top of my head, but this would be one of the successful ones that has done it well.
Even the Shawshank wasn't really a short story, but it was
a novella. Yeah, it was only 150 pages, but the concept works best for King movies is something like Cat's Eye, which does Quitters Incorporated, which is fucking excellent. And they do a good job in the adaptation, and The Ledge.
Yep.
Both of them are two of his good short stories, and they've been well adapted into short films.
Pieces. Yeah.
Right? Then you get the other side of the coin, like The Lawnmower Man, which takes a story about a guy who mows the lawn in the nude with fucking green pubes, and they turn it into a virtual reality piece.
So do you reckon that was during the height of King's excess with his, when he didn't remember writing things?
I'm sure there's a metaphor for it or some shit he's talking about.
There's been some duds though. Like there's always that need to, Stephen King, we better make a movie out of it, and you get stuff like.
I mean, there was a period in the 80s and the 90s where, I mean, he could have just pooped. And the man's making a resurgence now. He's back on deck with a lot of his property. I mean, he never went away. He always had stuff floating around, like Under the Dome and those sorts of things have been out. And he's so prolific. There's so much of it.
He's writing some good stuff, but then people are also doing something, it's coming around to where something like It is ripe for being remade. So I reckon we're going to get a few more of them.
And they're now doing a show called Castle Rock, which is basically just set in the King universe. It's not his stories per se, but the whole show is set within Castle Rock, which is the Stephen King universe, and it has connections to all this other stuff.
He still does that shit. Like, I'm reading Revival at the moment, and there's a sort of church revival in a tent element going through like the carnivals and stuff like that, and they mention Joyland, which is another one. They talk about something that happened at Joyland. He still does it. He still puts.
I mean, the bloke. Look, there's no doubt about it. The bloke his stuff is so good that it's ripe for cinematic stuff. Like, he's just so good. He's written stuff, and he's such a great author, and he's got so much work. But just when you're working with a short story like this, you really have to be tight. Yeah. And 104 minutes is too much. Now, if you want to play games on DVD and say it ends at 104.8 just for a gag, that's not good enough to run it out to 104 minutes.
Change the name of the movie to
94. 85 minutes. 80 with credits. That's what you should call it. But you know what I mean? Like, this movie is a 90-minute movie for me.
Yeah.
You give me 90 minutes and you just tidy up that ending, and she's an absolute fucking ball terror.
Yeah.
But because it's too long and there's not enough, I don't understand what they're fully trying to say about Mike Enslin's family and his life.
Yeah,
I don't get the ending. Mm-hmm. And it's a bit of a failure after such good work in the lead up.
I don't really get that either, because it's like, in a way, Sammy Jackson gets something of bloody comeuppance or whatever, when really he was trying to do Enslin assault. He's trying to do him right, so don't go in there, you know. I don't know why, but I recalled after watching it the first time, for some reason, that Sammy Jackson was a ghost.
Is he a ghost?
I don't know. I think maybe I just recalled. Maybe I'm getting my films mixed up.
Good God!
I didn't really.
Looks like Einstein and Hawking have missed the point again.
I didn't really get why he was giving her this is personal, it's for you. Trying to give her the tape, and then he listens to the tape and hears the voices and goes, "Oh shit!" Like, you knew it was haunted, apparently, so this shouldn't be a shock to you.
Yeah, look, I'm. The ending is a misstep because it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
and look, it might just not make sense to me.
Yeah,
but I just don't know. It's not its strength.
Yeah, and I also think one of the dislikes for me. I actually didn't. In my notes, I didn't write anything in the dislikes because there was nothing that I could really pinpoint that I really, really wasn't into in the movie. But it was only after, and thinking through some of this stuff. As I said, these ones are really difficult for me to watch sometimes and critique. But I think, like, you get these one-man shows, and sometimes they work really well, and sometimes they don't. Like, it's varying levels, but it's freaking hard to do. Like, I think of things like Phone Booth and Buried and stuff like that, and they're all in this pocket of, really good parts, but didn't quite hit the mark totally
in full.
And part of it is, as you said, it's really hard to develop anything outside of that one person and really make it sort of exciting beyond. It's hard to stretch it out for that long and make it exciting. So I think one of the strengths was that Cusack was fantastic as that one-man show. But then you said, we don't know anything about anyone else by the time the ending wraps up. So it's kind of its limitation in the same breath, really.
Because it tries to sort of go outside the one-man show to explain what was going on.
Yeah.
And because we don't know anyone else, I can't get on board that.
Honestly, I don't know why I thought in my recollection that Jackson was a ghost. Maybe it was the scene when he opens the fridge. He's in there, I'm thinking, where's this kid? But honestly, I watched it this time around, and they go to the funeral, and I thought to myself, what the fuck's Jackson doing here? I don't remember this. I was so kind of knocked for a loop at that point.
Yeah, look, it's just not quite there at the top echelon.
Yep.
It's good.
I also don't know why Tony Shalhoub was there at the end.
Exactly, like Tony Shalhoub is brought up for 5 minutes at the start as his agent, isn't he?
Yeah.
And then he returns at the funeral.
Yeah, that's like, enough. The woman's had enough or whatever. Like,
and it's like,
okay.
Like I didn't even know. If the guy wasn't played by Tony Shalhoub, I wouldn't fucking know who he was.
Yeah, exactly.
I would have forgotten all about him.
Pretty much.
So there's your limitations. And you spend that extra time trying to explain some stuff at the start, but it doesn't really work because the mid portion, which is an hour, is all John Cusack on his own.
Yep.
So very hard to sell that ending, which is, I think, its least successful part. Have you got any other dislikes?
No, not really.
Well, yeah, I mean, 5 seconds ago you said you didn't write anything down.
Exactly.
And once again, sleepwalking through the podcast.
I was taking plenty of notes, but I just didn't have anything of dislikes. That's why I said, like, when I was talking about it, there really was nothing that I didn't. Like, there was nothing that I really could pinpoint and say I
Gibbo's been
hated
more
this.
thorough. He's not even here.
Righto. But no, there was nothing I could pinpoint and say I really disliked this.
Yeah.
But nothing really. As I said, I finished the movie. After the first time, I forgot fucking Samuel Jackson was human. So it's not really. It wasn't super memorable. It might be the way to put it.
For me, when I finished the film,
you went and wrote a thesis on the meaning of life.
I wrote the meaning of life is ... and I screwed it up through away. No, for me
watching this was like Homer with the fucking in church. To
me, I went away thinking, what do I give this out of 5? Because I don't hate it. I don't hate it.
No.
But I don't
really like
feel it's the top.
It doesn't scale the heights of King. It doesn't. It's not up in the. It's not up in the. You know, obviously the Green Miles and that sort of thing.
Shanks and that
the Shawshank Redemption. Sorry, and even his better horror stuff, like the new It, for example.
Yeah.
I'd take that over this one.
Yeah.
Even something like Dolores Claiborne. Like I thought that was a great movie, and that's kind of this is short of that.
Yeah, exactly. All right. That is 1408. Thanks again to Kevin for bringing this one to our attention. Obviously,
we'll send you a copy of that thesis on the film. You know, just sort of working on it as we speak.
Look, currently, expect it in 2 to 4 years. I've still got to work my way through. I've got to unpack all this.
Well, you've got to finish your PhD.
Yeah, I've got work to do, Kevin, so don't expect it anytime soon.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks, Kevin. We really appreciate you bringing this one up. And we did want to, over the last few episodes, we wanted to cover off on some films that some of our listeners had brought forward. And really appreciate it, mate. And it was definitely worth a watch.
Yeah.
Because I hadn't seen it in a while either, so it was good. Yep. If you want to get in contact with us, send us an email at thrillme@iinet.net.au. Like us on Facebook, Thrill Me Podcast Australia, or at Podomatic at thrillme.podomatic.com. Next episode, our final listener request.
We're jumping in the deep end.
There we are, into the deep end. The guys from Nostalgia Be Damned threw a little bit of a curveball our way. It's Deep Blue Sea, another Sammy Jackson film.
Yep.
A mini Shark Week, so to speak.
Well, I'm still calling for it.
Oh, man.
Shark Week.
But we've knocked this one off the list.
Come on,
we've crapped on about Shark Week for so long, we are going to probably have to put it out pre-Christmas or just after. But look, thanks everyone for listening. Keep watching your films and getting in touch with us when you can. And until next time, take it easy. Find the podcast at Podomatic or on iTunes. Don't forget to rate and review. Like us on Facebook at Thrill Me Podcast Australia, or contact us at thrillme, all one word, all lowercase, at iinet.net.au.